Hello there, fellow zombie slayers. My name is Stanley557. The Mystery Box, one of the most iconic features in Call of Duty Zombies. Spend 950 points and you'll have immediate access to a wide assortment of weaponry and equipment. Not feeling your wall weapon? Well, why don't you just go hit for an LMG? Going for the Wonder Weapon? Well, on most maps, it's the only way to get one. You need an insurance policy? Well, equipment like the monkey bombs are just sitting in there, waiting to be claimed. Its utility and randomization adds another level of complexity that players adore. Why deal with the MP40 on Origins when the Galil, Scar H, Ray Gun, MG08, or even the Mark II are just sitting in the box to give the player an insane early game advantage against the Round 8 Panzer? The box has gone through many different balance changes over the years. In Black Ops 1, the majority of weapons were pretty terrible. In Black Ops 3, the majority of weapons were pretty good. And in Black Ops 4, the balance was alright, but there are way too many weapons in there to make anything viable to actually go for specifically. Most players tend to agree that Black Ops 2 and World at War have the best balance out of all the weapons in the series. But let's go back to Cold War. Cold War runs into a completely unique issue never presented in any iteration of the Mystery Box. The Mystery Box in Cold War is useless and redundant. Now, what do I mean by this statement? Well, let's go over the box's most unique attribute. Pay a small fee for a random assortment of weapons not obtainable through any other means, typically either better or worse than what you already have. Now, this is where Cold War really breaks that rule. In the game, the player has the option to fully customize and choose their starting weapon. So why would a player spin the box for their favorite LMG when they can just start with it? So the box is no longer needed in that respect. Now onto weapon kits. The customization in Cold War is the most nuanced in the series, and there's just one issue. Players can only customize their starting weapon. In the game, the developers decided that because you can pick your starting weapon, the box should apply random attachments to the weapon to make it more unique. This attribute was also applied to all weapons, and it was intended to make each weapon feel unique. The best feature of the weapon kits from BO3 and BO4 was that you got to choose what attachments were applied to each gun, and in BO4's case, each weapon felt personalized with your own specific touch. The issue comes in the fact that there are over 60 different attachments that can be randomized on your weapon, and because it's impossible to tell what attachment is which from an immediate glance, you'll have no idea what's being applied to your weapon or how it affects the gameplay of the weapon, and in some cases, the best attachments are just left out. For example, the Gallo's best attachment is the ability to add more ammo, and while it increases reload time, it also greatly expands the weapon clip and nearly doubles its reserves. This also applies to the Pack-a-Punch variant, which reloads at 4 times the speed and has over 200 bullets in the clip, if you use the 12 mag rounds. But because shotguns are one of the 2 classes that can't be upgraded to hold one of 8 attachment options, some variants from the box or the wall won't even have the weapon's best upgrade. So what about equipment like the monkey bombs? Well, those have been moved to zombie drops and to the salvage table. Kill streaks? Well, those can also be obtained from the weapon table, and most of them can be made so cheap that it's simply not worth it to try to go for them. They're really in the box as extra rewards the player just so happens to get, like the icing on a cake. And finally, Wonder Weapons. Now, this is a weird category. On Die Maschine, there are 2 Wonder Weapons, the Die and the Ray Gun. Now, the Die can be obtained through the super easy side Easter egg or through the challenge board, and while it can also be obtained through Crystals in the Dark Aether and the box, most players would rather invest their points in the challenge board. Now, the Ray Gun on Die Maschine is the only saving grace for why a player would ever want to hit the box in Cold War. If it wasn't for this weapon, I don't think players would genuinely use the box, as it offers no utility unless you just want to mix up your gameplay midway through. And on the recent Firebase Z, the Ray K can either be built or easily obtained through challenges, and most players simply tend to prefer the challenge method as it's so much cheaper than the box method, as the odds are too low to make it worth it. And I really feel the gameplay of Cold War doesn't support switching your weaponry mid-game either. Now, there are many factors that affect the overall gameplay of Cold War: the rarity system, the ammo boxes, and the increased Pack-a-Punch opportunities. The gameplay of Cold War heavily points towards investment in a single weapon. Why buy a new weapon when you're out of ammo, when you can simply buy more from the numerous and generously cheap ammo boxes? Why switch weapons when you've already invested 50,000 points to fully Pack-a-Punch your first weapon? And why switch out your loadout weapon when you can just Pack-a-Punch it and get an instant damage boost? Now, I know that whenever I play Cold War, I keep the Gallo as my primary weapon until I get the Wonder Weapon, and just use those weapons until I'm bored. The features of the game appear to massively contradict the box's new changes, and it makes it completely obsolete in this current iteration. So, where can we improve? Well, I'd start by changing around some of the fundamental attributes. For example, once you get past round 30, you get the option to pay 5,000 points for an instantly randomized Pack-a-Punch weapon, or even 10,000 points past round 40 for a double PAP weapon. This might make players more likely to switch their weaponry if they grow bored of their current one. Another suggestion would be the removal of wall weapons from the box, as it's already bloated enough with every weapon currently available in the game, including each weapon's variants, their random attachments, and score streaks. A third change I would make would be to completely reintroduce weapon kits. Weapon kits were an amazing addition to the game in Black Ops 3 and 4, and while Cold War has a completely reworked weapon kit system, it's only usable on the starting weapon, and because it's directly ported for multiplayer, there are a ton of attachments that just don't translate all that well to zombies. This mostly applies to stocks and sights. This will make the box feel more personalized again, and people would be more willing to use it if they knew what they were actually getting when trading out their weapons, because in Die Maschine, the box is an obligatory ray gun loot box system. Either you get it, or you don't. One of the Dark Ops cards is literally hitting the box and pulling every single weapon in one game, and I got this card on accident while going for the ray gun. It's nuts. I think a final way to change the box would actually be to lower its price, which sounds weird, but let me explain. Point maximizing is extremely important in Cold War, and even though every zombie can give you a minimum of 90 points, the player needs to be mindful on how they spend them, because if they fall behind on weapon upgrades or perks, they'll soon find themselves falling behind the current zombie health. Nearly 1,000 points for a single box spin is extremely expensive, and the game doesn't do anything to incentivize you to switch out your weaponry. But those are my thoughts on this aging system. But what are your guys' thoughts? Do you still hit the box, or are you like me and you stick with old reliable until you get the wonder weapon? Let me know in the comments below, and if you haven't, don't forget to subscribe and become a fellow zombie slayer. But with that, thank you everyone for watching, and remember, keep on slaying.